we've really identified a lot of gaps that could be filled. We're learning that a lot of us are struggling with the same challenges. And a lot of us are relying on data or sample policies that are coming from Atlanta or Austin or Phoenix. And what would be more helpful is for us to share data, share best practices in our own region, because just the Midwest is fundamentally different in a lot of ways than the coast, just our challenges and our opportunities, our demographics, all of that. So as that was wrapping up, the folks at the table said, yes, let's launch a Midwest Climate Collaborative, a multi-sector collaborative. And so we launched in January. That launched, Gina McCarthy was there, as well as many others. And that, if you'd like to watch that, get out some popcorn, and that's available on our website. So we launched with 30 members. And we are now up to, I think, 42 or 43. So actually, Abigail, if you want to go to the next slide. The two things that I think are, really excited me about this collaborative, because I moved out of my NGO role and left my local government role to take this position. And a couple of things that really excited me. One, it is focused on the Midwest region. So like I said, I'm from the Midwest. We use the US Census Bureau designation for the Midwest. So you can see those 12 states there. Our vision is very broad, a carbon neutral, climate resilient, interconnected Midwest region. And I can share a little bit more about kind of how we interpret that interconnected in a second here. So one, being focused on the Midwest is, I think, really important. And then the cross-sector nature, the multi-sector nature of this collaborative, I think, is also what's really unique. So Abigail, if you can go to the next slide. And actually, you can go to the next one too. That just mentions that these 12 states, if we were a country, we would be the 5th largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. You can probably scroll past this one. I think folks on this call know that. Okay, so yeah, we can pause here for a second. So I don't think this is the most up-to-date slide, but of our 43 members, probably about a third of those are higher ed institutions. And so some of those are large state universities, out of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, as well as some smaller colleges, Carleton in Minnesota, Principia, over down here on the other side of the river in Illinois from where I am, and St. Louis. And then also we're doing a lot of outreach to tribal colleges and universities, and about 7 or 8 local governments represented here. So Kansas City, St. Louis, Ann Arbor, the Madison Regional Planning Commission, Indianapolis is joining, Evanston, I think maybe I mentioned that one already, Carmel, Indiana as well. And then the rest are NGOs, and they range from, well, actually we've got one corporate member. We're still working on what that corporate membership looks like, because we think it's really important that the folks who are coming to the table are committed and in a position to really make a dent in our carbon emissions. And so we're still kind of working on what that looks like, but Millipore Sigma is our one corporate member. And then the rest are NGOs, and they range from small organizations that do weatherization in low-income homes up to the Nature Conservancy in Illinois, in Nebraska, American Lung Association, St. Louis Zoo, Missouri Botanical Garden. So quite a range, as you can see here. Next, Abigail. Thank you. And we are, coming together to collaborate on, a whole range of issues. These are just, some of the issues that, we're focused on here in the Midwest that are big topics that are of importance to our members. You can go to the next one. And the interconnected part of our vision, I think, is really important because while, we've got enough intelligence in our region and innovation to be able to pencil out what carbon neutrality might look like. But if we are not engaging all of the communities in our region, tapping into all the different types of knowledge that we have here, understanding the perspectives of the diverse communities, how in our region, how folks are experiencing climate change, we're not going to be able to design and implement effective solutions. And so that interconnected part of our vision is really about equity, justice, diversity, inclusion. And next slide. And so the role of the MCC here is really different from, I think, your traditional nonprofit. Leaving the nonprofit world, I was not interested in creating another nonprofit to compete for funds, to convene people to talk about the same things they're already talking about in other spaces. So the idea here is that we really are filling gaps. We're bringing folks together from across sectors. And I've seen this in my own experience in local government. St. Louis City Hall is just about 7 miles down the street from Washington University. And the gap is huge. We might as well be, speaking different languages to one another and on different planets in terms of what the priorities are. So really figuring out how to bridge that gap between research and practice, which Abigail is going to talk about. And also, folks in, whether you're in, Indianapolis, what's going on in terms of EV charging, it's much better to be learning from folks in Cleveland or Detroit or Kansas City. And so figuring out how we can also be bringing folks together to share best practices and really building capacity. I mean, that's the number one thing. So much of this comes back to often we know what the best practice is, or we know what it is that we want to do, but the funds aren't there, or the technological expertise, the human capacity, the financial capacity, all of those things. And so one of the things we've been able to do just even in these first 6 months is put together a couple of different collaborative grant proposals. And I think where we're going to see the greatest success is where we can have these clusters, where we've got an academic institution, a local government, and an NGO kind of coming together. And then the collaborative can kind of step in and put together a grant proposal that maybe none of those entities on their own would have the capacity or the connections to do. And so we did this around urban heat island mitigation and expanding tree canopy. We had Indianapolis, Madison, Kansas City, and St. Louis, probably about 12 partners amongst those 4 cities, plus several other stakeholders, put together a collaborative grant. And so I'm excited about that role that the MCC can play. And I think there's maybe just one. Yeah, this is the last one. And you can learn more about these projects on our website. So as we're building up the membership, and we have set July 1 as a kind of as a deadline for our founding members, even though we started in January, we're keeping that open through the beginning of July here. So as we're building up the membership, some of our members are already coming together and collaborating in a lot of different ways. So these were ideas that emerged from those first couple of years of the summit. So the climate research agenda, which I'll let Abigail talk about in a minute. The Educator Community of Practice is for K through 12, higher ed, and community educators. And they're looking at, one, how do we make sure that students coming out of any discipline have a curriculum that is going to prepare them to be successful in an era of climate change. So whether that's fashion design school, engineering, journalism, whatever it is, making sure that they're prepared, and also being able to share resources. And honestly, this has also become kind of a support group for folks, because a lot of educators don't, they can feel isolated in their institution or their community when they're talking about climate change. And then also just making sure that our workforce is trained and ready for the green economy that we are scrambling to set up. The Student Sustainability Conference is about bringing undergraduate students together across campuses to talk about what's going on their campus, as well as collective action. And then Climate Ambassadors is a program that we're working to build out with AAAS, the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And this is expanding their local science engagement network, where faculty and graduate students prepare science information for decision makers. So far, it's been happening at the state legislative level. We're interested in local decision makers, as well as chambers of commerce and other audiences. And then Climate Asset Map. So this would be essentially an online resource for folks to be able to see what resources are available in the region, whether that's, the EPA's Finance Resource Center for local governments to finance sustainability initiatives, or it could be a research center, folks who are looking to collaborate, could be data sets or reports, anything that's going to be a resource to folks looking to take climate action in the Midwest. And then tracking climate commitments, just what it sounds like. So whether it's a city, state, university, corporation that has a climate goal, tracking that and leveraging, resources that are already out there. I know Second Nature is already looking at different universities. Urban Sustainability Directors Network is out there. So kind of pulling a lot of that, together. And then, finding ways to hold ourselves accountable, translating what does that mean, taking a sound bite and actually turning it into action. So those are the 6 projects that have emerged so far. It just kind of some examples about how we're really connecting one another, amplifying the work that's already going on in the region, filling those gaps, and really at the end of the day, elevating our region as a place where climate action is happening. So whether it's the White House, the UN, Jeff Bezos, when they're thinking about where is climate action happening, where is it worth their investment, we want people to be thinking about the Midwest. There's a lot of great work going on here. How can we amplify it, replicate it, and make a dent, not just in our own region, but as a global emitter. So I think the last slide, Abigail, is just my contact info, and I'll drop that in the chat. So I know I ran through all that really fast, but I want to get to Abigail to talk about the research agenda. I'm happy to take any questions though, as well. And if anybody's group is interested in talking more, about membership, I'm happy to jump on, additional calls with anybody as needed.
Thank you. I'm like overwhelmed with questions, but I want to give Abigail a turn. So Abigail, why don't you go, and then we'll save questions for afterwards.
Sounds good. I'll go ahead also and share my screen and just continue. Right, so Heather, I gave an overview of the MCC and the different projects that we are, working on, and I will narrow into the research agenda. And like Heather mentioned earlier, like we recognize that with research that's done in academia, there's often a bridge, a gap between the research that's produced and what's needed by practitioners or knowledge users out in the field. And so there's either the research is too theoretical to use, or it's misinterpreted and applied wrongly. And so to overcome this issue where there are different fields, whether it's psychology or information technology, and also climate science, are beginning to develop research agendas that will guide the research. And it's a stakeholder-driven approach where we're communicating and engaging with stakeholders across different sectors and asking, what questions should we be focused on? What are the gaps that have been identified as practitioners in the different, sections or sectors that you're working in? And so with that in mind, the research agenda aims to be this bridge between researchers and practitioners. And with the Midwest Climate Research Agenda, what we're doing is to develop an agenda that's focused on strategies that inform climate mitigation and adaptation for the Midwest in the next 10 years. And so in achieving this, we are synthesizing the current knowledge of climate research in the Midwest, and also identifying immediate and long-term climate research questions. And so going to different stakeholders and practitioners and organizations and saying, what should we be focused on? What questions should we be addressing? And that's why we're here, having this conversation today and wanting to learn and know about your experiences and challenges in this space. With regards to climate change and climate research in the Midwest. And so we will share this research portal. You can scan the QR code, and I'll also be happy to drop the link in the chat. And in that portal, that's where we're curating, questions from different stakeholders and practitioners as we engage with them. And another thing we're doing with the research agenda is we developed a working group, and we're bringing people together who are interested in this work and wanting to also expand awareness about the research agenda. And so if that's something that you're interested in, we'll be happy to share information about that as well. We're leveraging existing relationships and working collaboratively to move the work forward. And one of the means we're also doing this is connecting with newsletters of organizations. So I think some of you might have received information about the research agenda through a newsletter that was shared through the Nature Conservancy. And so we're doing that and reaching out to other organizations and asking for a spot on their newsletters where we can, share information about the research agenda. And as we move into the question segment, one of the prompts I'll share some prompts and questions to think about as you try to fill the survey. And then when you think about short and long-term goals around sustainability and climate, would you say you have all the data and information on best practices to achieve them? And in your experience as well, what gaps in information or research do you think need to be addressed to support the climate work that you do in your organization? And then a last question prompt is, what are the top 3 questions that you think need to be answered to advance climate research work in the Midwest? And so I'll stop here and open it up for questions, and also pop the link to the portal into the chat, and you can also access it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Abigail, I have a quick question for you about the survey. Sometimes when organizations get surveys, they work to sort of collate the answers within the organization and then send it out to you. Is that what you're looking for? Or are you looking for as many individual opinions as possible in terms of this research? Does that make sense, that question?
But so you're asking if it's possible for the organization to collate all the questions?
Yeah, so like our group here, right? You're talking to the climate group, but there's 6 other goals. Should we work to fulfill this for you, or should we just work to populate the market the survey and say, hey, you take as many of these as you can? Or do you want one answer for Lake County Forest Preserve or
Well, actually, let me step back. Actually,
Conservancy, you know what I mean?
We actually did share this out with the Chicago
No,
Wilderness.
I know you did. I know you
Okay.
did. But I'm just asking, because like I can put this out on my own, right? And I can fill it out on my own, or I can fill it out on behalf of Chicago Wilderness Climate Committee, or some other group that I'm working with. Or do you like? A lot of us wear a bunch of different hats, so I'm trying to figure out which hat we should wear to fill this out.
I think having as many individual responses as possible will be great. So would appreciate sharing the information about it with as many groups as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Because I have lots more, but I don't want to monopolize the time. All right, I'll keep going then. So another question that I have is sort of an observation on our end. One of the things that I think is really interesting in Illinois, and I'm not so sure about other places, but we have the U.S. Climate Alliance working with the state level, right? We have 2 or 3 climate plans at the local levels, but to my mind, none have sort of been coordinated with the other, and there's a big gap in terms of those different levels being coordinated. Is that something you're interested in working on? It's not really research-based, but it is a gap, especially here in Illinois. Is that a gap you're finding elsewhere, or is that something that you're interested in focusing on, or is that just out of your purview?
Ted, are you talking about let me make sure. So like you've got like a climate action plan, maybe made on behalf of the city of Chicago. You've got a climate action plan over at Northwestern, and
Yep,
then
you
Cook
got a
County has a
climate
climate action
plan
plan, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Edith Macra has the Green Region climate plan, which is 280 small municipalities in and around Chicago in the region. And then we have the state stuff. And to my mind, very few of those groups are talking to one another. You have us, right? We sort of all relate, but it's hard for us to coordinate. And that's one of the things that I'm interested in doing, but I haven't gotten there yet.
No, we're definitely hearing that. And it's interesting because what I heard from a lot of our local government members, especially was, look, we've got climate action plans that were developed kind of in coordination with, an academic institution in the region, but like I'm one person, and how do I engage with this huge institution down the street on a shared climate plan? And the way that I think I'm not going to suggest that we have the answers for that or we can step in and solve that problem, but I think one of the things we're interested in doing is for our next Midwest Climate Summit, which I'm thinking about February, if we can pull that off in time, really creating space there for that sort of collaboration. So instead of, going and just passively listening to a presentation, like getting 8 to 12 people or something in a room and having maybe a topic would be folks who are in this region who like, let's lay down all of the climate action plans, we could have a facilitated discussion about where's the overlap, if that's needed. If there's somebody else, like I was just talking to somebody with Green Umbrella over in Ohio, and they're kind of doing some of that regional, I think, coming together for that area. But if that's identified, we would be happy to kind of put together the infrastructure for those groups to come together, help get a facilitator, and possibly take the lead on putting together a grant proposal to take either one to facilitate and plan, or two to identify some specific action steps that folks could work on together.
And then I guess my next question is, you talked a little bit about membership. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I assume something like that February summit is open to only members, or would it be open to general public?
I imagine, so that would be open to anybody.
Okay.
One of the things we're talking about is how, and I'm going to drop the membership link in the chat here, and there's a dues chart for anybody who's interested. So this is the one, because the collaborative is still so new, things are still kind of flexible and dynamic as we figure all of this out. So, one of those fundraising proposals we put together to NSF, there were probably about, maybe 7 or 8 members, and then several stakeholders who were also part of that. Like our working groups for those projects generally are led by members, but their meetings and activities are open to anybody. So I think that summit will definitely be open to anybody. There may be some other layer of convening that happens between members at that time. Maybe you get an extra star on your name tag or some swag. I don't know yet. But yes, hopefully to do that with everybody. And Chicago has come up as a possible location because it's so centrally located. And so to the extent that people have ideas for, maybe it is a collaborative grant proposal that folks would like to get in a room and work on, or there's a specific issue they'd like to troubleshoot, I'm going to definitely be interested to hear what some of those ideas might be.
So Casey has a really good question. He just put it in the chat. He said, I didn't see nature-based solutions as part of your focus area. Is there a role for that with MCC? Asking because we still need to acknowledge CW as its own collaborative conservation focus entities. And that is our core sort of area of interest, is nature-based solutions given our entity. Yes,
absolutely. So the only thing that is really, in writing about this collaborative so far is carbon neutral, climate resilient, interconnected Midwest. And the idea was to be very broad and open. And I mean, there's several of our university members, who've got researchers working on those sorts of things. There's a lot of, I'm familiar with the groups here in St. Louis, biodiversity, and several other groups that are looking at nature-based solutions. So that's one of the things we're doing this summer, is putting together some cross-sector just networking conversations over Zoom. And that could easily be a topic. Folks who are working on nature-based solutions, how do we get more funding for this? How do we share what we're learning? And is there a research gap there that could be shared with as part of the climate research agenda? So absolutely. And the collaborative is going to be taking shape based on the members. So like I said, right now we're building this. And that's why I think the membership is so important, because the members are going to determine what sort of collaborative action comes out of this. So absolutely.
And just to clarify, looking at the dues scale, it seems that Chicago Wilderness would be charged $500 for being a member. Am I correct on that?
Let's see. So the NGO, it's based on budget.
And Laura, have there been any talks about us becoming a member? I assume not, because that would be initiated in this group, but I don't know.
No, there hasn't been, but we do also often with organizations that are alliances such as ours, we just entered into a reciprocal arrangement with another alliance organization. Do you ever consider something like that, a reciprocal, where you would join? We are a membership-based organization, and then offer a reciprocal partnership between our two organizations. That's something that we could offer or discuss. Otherwise, it would need to come to the steering committee.
Oh, sorry, what was the last part that you said about the steering committee?
Otherwise, we would need to take this up through the steering committee process. Ted, you would probably need to.
And that would be next month, right? So we'd be a little late for the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's come up as an idea. Our steering committee is meeting for the first time, actually, as soon as this meeting is over. So I'm going to be bringing that up with them. So far, we haven't, just because we have such a wide breadth of members. We've got NGOs that have 4 staff people, and then we have, universities with multi-million-dollar budgets and thousands of staff people. And so figuring out what that looks like to be, equitable and fair is something that we have not wrapped our minds around yet. So that might happen. It's probably not going to happen in the next couple of months, I would say, but it's something that we're looking at.
Okay.
And also,
go ahead.
I was just going to add to the question, to answering the question on focus areas on the research agenda too. We're open to as broad a variety of questions as possible. So it's pure and applied sciences or social science or policy related questions. As much can be put in is what we're open to.
And then just to re-clarify about the membership, is you said it closed July 1st, right? Or will close July 1st?
Membership will always be open.
Okay.
When we launched in January, we kind of had our initial 30 and we called them founding members. And there were several folks at the time who were still thinking about it, and we were doing outreach. And so we just said, we'll keep this open till July 1 in case there's anybody. And I was just having this conversation today with somebody, it kind of depends on how important it is to be called a founding member. I mean, I think it's going to be like an asterisk on our website that's next to your name that says you are a founding member. Again, there's nothing necessarily that comes with that. Folks can join in August or September.
Okay.
We'll prorate membership for the whole year, if that's the case.
All right, thank you. That helps. I don't know that we need to be a founding member, but I think we would like to pursue membership in some form or another at some point. Any other questions for Abigail or Heather? Well, we have them. Otherwise, we do have some other stuff to talk about. And Abigail and Heather, you're welcome to stay if you want. I assume you have better things to do with your time, but we're going to talk about sort of updates and announcements, and that might be of interest to you. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'll stay on as long as I can. I do have another meeting at 4:30, and I'm going to put my contact info in the chat because, like I said, I'm going to be up in Chicago. I think there's an event Saturday, whatever that weekend is after July 4th. Maybe it's at UIC Eco Voices Project, maybe. So I'm going to try to attend some of those events. And if anybody would like to get together for coffee to chat more, if there's anything else going on that I should be aware of while I'm up there, please let me know. We'd love to meet folks in person and learn more about what you're all doing. That's really what we're all about, is amplifying the great work that's going on in the region and helping to elevate our region as a whole.
And then one last question while we have you before we switch topics. Have you talked to Loyola at all and Aaron Dernbaugh?
Yeah, Loyola is one of our founding members.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
They should be. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, Loyola, Northwestern University of Chicago. And then
Okay.
I'm meeting with, is it Angela Tovar?
Yep.
Yeah, so we haven't nailed down a time, but we've been in communication. So hoping to meet with her. And if there's anybody else that you think would be interested in the collaborative, like I said, we've got Evanston. So Evanston and Northwestern is a nice little grouping there. And that's why it'd be wonderful to have connection to, the community groups, the folks doing the action on the ground. I think that, would really inform, the collaborative and make for some really great collaborations, I guess I should say. So thank you for the time. I really, really appreciate it. And again, I'm sorry my camera's not working.
That's okay. Thank you for the time. All right, so the agenda I wrote up quickly, got a little futzed around. I think we were supposed to have announcements before this. The only quick announcements I have were, it sounds like the Farm Field Day was a smashing success based on the meetings I've had today so far. The other thing that I'd like to do, and I told the steering committee this morning, is to send out that the survey that we did in our last meeting out to the broader group. So we'll be doing that. I'm trying to think if there are any other items that we discussed. We talked a lot about Bold Bison coming in to give goal teams support and for coordination in respect to ramping up for the Congress in the fall. So will be really helpful. Their schedule is very tight. So what they've asked us to do is to tell them as a group what they need to know if they can't know everything. So I think I'll send an email out reminding this, but I think by sort of our next meeting in late July, if not sooner, we should have 3 to 5 things that they need to focus on in terms of the troubles that we're having or the challenges that we're having or the desires that we have to move forward. So I just heard about this today. I'm not sure what those 3 to 5 things are in my mind. My guess is everybody else has those 3 to 5 things. So maybe we can jot them down and I can make an online Google sheet that we can put those down on. And once I do that, I'll send that out to you guys. I think that's it. Is there anything else that I missed, Laura, that I should focus on?
That is the big thrust will be to get prepared for Bold Bison meetings and also the content that will be incorporated into the Congress planning activities. And so I feel like that's a multi-pronged approach for planning with Bold Bison. I'm going to forward to you, Ted, the presentation that Brandon gave, so that will help frame some of your language around that.
Okay.
Yes, the Farm Field Days was a really great success. It was a great model of a field trip and really learning on the ground the solutions that are being implemented in Will County in terms of agroforestry, carbon sequestration, cover crops, and everything else. Mark Johnson and Darwin, who is the new Chicago Wilderness intern, did a fantastic job of capturing drone footage that will be used to create story map at the higher level about the work that's going on in the Growing with Ag team. So I feel like it was a really great, about 60 people came. So it was something to learn from, and we'll take forward when we do our Congress planning and then plan the field trips that will be implemented in 2023.
The other 2 things that sprang to mind, Laura, while you were talking is one, I was talking to Tim Brennan, who is one of the heads of the ag group during the meeting this morning. And I now am attending the ag committee's next meeting, I think is it the 12th or the 11th, somewhere in there. And if others are interested, I think we're going to be talking about climate and how we can merge what came out of those field days or the field day into working together with climate, because my guess is with that drone footage and some of the stuff they were talking about, that could be, we could leverage that pretty well in terms of climate messaging. So if anybody wants to join me there, I will be there at 1 o'clock. I think, Laura, you put this now on the calendar. You're about to, after your really way too busy day.
It's on there. It's
okay.
already on there. Mhm.
So that's one
copy of that.
announcement. And then the other announcement is Michelle and I spent about an hour last week talking to the PCI consultant group about their scope and mission as well in their project. So not a whole lot to report. It was pretty high level discussion. Generally sort of what we think we're doing well and what we think we could be doing better in terms of coordinating with the goal groups and messaging. I think that's about it for me. Alicia, I know you had some announcements as well, right?
Yes, so first I wanted to flag in our last call, I can't remember, time just blurs together at this point, but we were discussing the need for further capacity in this leadership team to fill in some gaps there. And then Ted and Michelle and I were specifically talking about an interest in recruiting emerging professionals who are looking for that experience. Sorry, there's a siren behind me, but young emerging professionals who are looking with that for that experience in grassroots mobilization and coalition leadership. This would be a really great opportunity here. And then especially it works out for folks who are maybe earlier on in their careers, are more likely to have that extra time and capacity to do so. So I created a little blurb in the Google Doc and the link that I just popped in the chat. Anyone should be able to edit from that link that basically characterizes this team and the scope of work that we do. And I'm going to be using this blurb to approach some of my own contacts at Loyola's alumni list, DePaul's, same with the Student Conservation Association. So I'm hoping that we can use that as a template message to approach our own contacts and just hopefully beef up some of the presence here and capacity here. And then also I wanted to flag that the city of Chicago is revamping their sustainable development plan, which is essentially rules that are set out for development that utilizes any type of government funding and assistance. So this can be anything from the actual government buildings to buildings that receives some sort of housing assistance to be built, that there are certain metrics that they have to meet in order to be energy efficient and energy friendly. This is the city's first time. I'm still learning about this plan, but the city is revamping this plan for the first time since I think the early 2010s. And I've heard that there will be a public commenting period coming up. So I will be monitoring that. So this group can submit some comments, much like we did with the City of Chicago Climate Action Plan.
Do we have any idea when that comment period might be?
Last I
fall, summer?
Last I heard was late July, but the city is unpredictable here.
Thank you, that helps. Yeah, thanks for putting that together, Alicia. I think once that's ready to send out, let's finalize it and just send it out to the group. So I guess we can all forward it to our own contacts, and then we can go from there. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right to me. And Casey, I saw you left some comments. Thanks. I haven't gotten a chance to look at them now. And Ted, I still have to respond to your email that you sent.
Yeah,
right
and it's basically, I've read the comments very quickly, but I've been on Zooms all today, so I haven't really thought about them. And I owe you a review. That's it.
Sounds good.
One last question before I think we set everybody free, unless there's other sort of new announcements or business or ideas. Laura, you mentioned today in the steering committee that goal 3, I think, is meeting with Edith on Wednesday.
I don't know what day. It's not goal 3. It's just Maggie Solis meeting directly with Edith one-on-one. So she said she would follow up with me after they had a chance to meet.
Okay. Would it be worth talking to Maggie to put a plug for her to climate group? I haven't had much success reaching out to her.
You want me to?
I
yeah,
don't know.
I'm happy.
I'm asking
I'm
strategy here.
happy. Yeah, no, I'm happy to reach out to Maggie, and I know that she knows that Edith has been tapped for a couple different committees, and so I would be happy to, because I did talk to her directly about this meeting, and she did want to meet with Edith one-on-one. So I will do that, Ted.
Yeah, and that would be great. I mean, I don't think we need her full-time, but I'd love to have her sort of not on retainer, but you know what I mean, right? I don't want to occupy all her time, but I think it would be really helpful to have her as for us to be one of the lead groups that she liaises with, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And if she has others that she wants to connect.
Yeah. And
same
how
way.
we work that out to be most efficient for her,
Mhm.
I think is the idea there. Any other ideas or new business? Casey, I know we've sort of sat on a story map idea for a little bit. I don't know if you've had time to look at that. I don't know if you're angry at me for, mucking it up too much or what.
Well, actually, when I did see your edits, it occurred to me that we had 2 separate approaches, and both of them would have been valuable. So the same presentation could be used, tweaked to 2 different audiences. And so that's what came out of that. But I'm in my super busy field season right now. So, and there's something about being in the field and then being in the office, and the mind just needs an adjustment period. And I just haven't had that yet. So
I understand. Okay, I just wanted to check. Any other ideas or new business?
I keep on hoping I'll have positive news for you guys on Build Back Better during one of these sessions, but
We all cross our fingers, right? All right, I will give you guys 7 minutes of your day back. Thank you very much, Abigail. Please, I don't know, stay in touch. We will stay in touch. And I will let you guys know, I'll work with Laura about us becoming a member somehow, some way. And we'll keep in touch there.
Right. Thank you. I also want to say thank you for the work you all do, advancing climate action, in your spaces, and just thank you for the opportunity.
And if you want more of an idea of some of the stuff that we're working on, because we have a whole lot of stuff that we didn't show you today, I would be happy, or one of us just back and do a return favor to you, if that's helpful.
Absolutely. Yes, that'll be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
everyone.